Let's continue reading where we left off. Page 231, Worlds in Collision. Josephus Flavius repeated the version of Herodotus and added that there is another version by the Chaldeo-Hellenistic historian Berosus. Josephus wrote introductory words to a quotation of Berosus, but the quotation itself is missing in the present text of the Jewish Antiquities. Obviously, it was an explanation different from that of Herodotus. Josephus's account, somewhat rationalistic as usual, says a bubonic plague was the cause of the sudden death of 185,000 warriors in the camp of the Assyrians before the walls of Jerusalem on the very night of the siege. Herodotus recounts that he saw the statue of the god with a mouse in the palm of his hands, which was erected in memory of the event. So basically, Herodotus is speaking about a statue that he saw that commemorated the event, and he's seeing it being connected with a mouse and somebody holding it in the palm of his hands. Well, a mouse has been connected with starting plagues. If I'm not mistaken, even the Black Plague was attributed to mice. And you could see where there's some sort of similitude of something that is derived from the same event, but yet as it's traveled abroad, the information has become crystallized in certain stages of its translation. And where you might get a connection now to a certain type of plague that is being symbolized with mice, and then you can see that it might be descriptive of something else, but just being using that as the symbol to describe it. So instead, the symbol actually turns into what you think is the reality. So the mice might not be mice in general. It might be people that are being termed as mice. It might be a type of people that are being considered a plague on this world. And it's going to be relative to where Jesus Christ had said they strain the gnat, but yet swallow the camel. And we're going to see that the gnat means something specifically to race, to species. And it's going to connect to the sacred feminine in a way that they're trying to thin that stock, control the population, or even cull the population of the world in accordance with what they believe. So a mouse or mice might be the people that this army of Sennacherib was seeking to destroy, calling them almost a plague in themselves, in which we end up getting a report or an account of Hezekiah, the Judean king, having some sort of bubonic type plague persona of his own that he was eventually healed from. So you could see that now the people that were being sieged by the Assyrian army could very well be the very plague being symbolized as people that they thought was some sort of scourge on the earth that they were to eradicate and destroy by the will of their God. Almost how you see the later Israelite peoples themselves began to translate certain words from ancient historical accounts, religious and spiritual associated, to where they thought that they were supposed to eradicate peoples of ethnicity that were separate from their immediate tribe of Israel. And you would be calling these the Gentiles. My contention is that the Israelite philosophies of this race eradication thing are borrowed from these Chaldean, Babylonian, Assyrian philosophies that were earlier, and the Hebrews themselves were captive in Babylon as well as Egypt. So you can see that this is where they had absorbed certain of the earlier myths and blatant spiritual mistranslations of the will of God. And many people are carrying out some sort of will of another God, which is pushing racial superiority, the conquest through blood, murder, and pillaging to make one race superior to another. And that's not what the Father's about. So everybody should easily know that. My point here is, I guess, just to see that the mice now, we should show the account of Hezekiah and let me just seem to just jump forward here since we talked about it a little bit. It is peculiar that the numerous commentators of Herodotus and the no less numerous commentators of the Bible did not draw attention to a certain coincidence in these descriptions of the calamity. Hezekiah became gravely ill of some bubonic affection. And it says affection rather than infection. Interesting. And was near death. Isaiah was called. He told the king that he would die, but soon he returned and offered a remedy, a lump of figs for the boil, and told the king that the Lord would deliver him from immediate death and would also deliver this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria. Now, that is absolutely incredible, because what it does is it supports what I'm trying to tell you, is that the mouse is more than a twofold symbol, but its most profound portion is a twofold identity of the stone, the fire from the sky that was being thrown to protect the people who were being seen as nothing but a plague of mice, a scourge. And if you've ever seen the movie Guardians of Ga'Hoole, about a faction of evil owls and a faction of good owls, it's a recent anime. Well, you will notice there that they have mice in there, and that they're looking for these blue flecks, this special blue stuff being pulled out of them that they absolutely need. Without going into a big long account, that is what this is all about. And they are telling you that they're about and thinking about it and have something to do with it in modern times as they encode it into such movies as Guardians of Ga'Hoole. And you know, owls are symbolism of sacrifice in multiple ways, as we're beginning to see here now in connection with this one, which would be Malik, or Malik. You can also get Molech, and you can get the gross misrepresentation of the worshiping and sacrifice of children being thrown into the fire to this ancient god Molech, and then you can get something that's connected to maybe a sort of battle with that type of sacrifice symbolized as Molech, that could be very well connected to it, but yet trying to stop it. And then the symbols themselves get lost between the two identities, one being positive, the other being negative. And then throughout time, certain different cultures saw the negative as positive, and other cultures saw the positive as negative, due to racial pride. And this is where a lot of the confusion begins to manifest. But if you know what right and wrong is, if you know to love your neighbor as you love yourself, and God is the God of everybody, and that he is certainly not ordering anybody to murder and kill anybody over some sort of racial blood doctrine, but he does from time to time elect certain individuals to perform supernatural tasks for the keeping of his children. And as Jesus Christ has already spoken of in many warnings to these people in the future, I could see is very relative to what we're seeing here in this individual holding a mouse in the palm of his hand, now being symbolized with the king Hezekiah himself becoming gravely ill of some sort of bubonic plague. And then you got to remember that Sennacherib, the Assyrians, the army of Sennacherib, was seeking to destroy Hezekiah, within the walls of Jerusalem, the Judean king. And then we can see later that he is being seen as invading the Egyptian lands as well. And that because of this encroachment of this king, we can see that it was basically required to put a stop to this, and something with some sort of fire blast from the sky being symbolized with a mouse, a meteorite, a thunderbolt, even connected to the city of Letopolis. I'll be back.